Thank you, all of you, for being here. I've never gotten this kind of reception for an announcement of a new solar company, so I'm ecstatic, and I know that's why you're all here. We appreciate the opportunity to update you on some of our efforts in San Francisco over the last number of years to try to encourage green tech companies to our city. As you know, San Francisco has prided itself on being a leader in terms of environmental stewardship. We have initiated a local global climate action plan that called to roll back our greenhouse gas emissions 20% below 1990 levels by 2012. We're well on our way of achieving that goal. In fact, newest numbers that just appeared on my desk show that we are now officially over 6% below 1990 levels. We were a little over 5% this time last year. We're making real progress. A number of initiatives have gone into the development of our strategy and plan, most significantly a focus on renewables, particularly solar. You may recall a year and a half or so ago, we initiated the largest incentive program in the United States of America for solar installations, a local incentive program that has substantially increased the number of installations in our city. At last count, we've seen a 450% increase in solar installations since we launched those local incentives. An organization called Environmental California came out with a report that showed on a per capita basis, San Francisco is a leader in the state of California in terms of photovoltaic installations and generation, 6 times greater than Los Angeles County on a per capita basis. The city has made real progress in terms of its solar initiatives. We've also been reaching out to companies not only within the state of California, across the country, but around the world to try to encourage them to locate their headquartered companies here in San Francisco and California and North America. You recall we invited you all in a year or so ago and announced that SunTech, a China-based company, would locate its headquarters here. It was committed itself to locating its headquarters here. That company now arguably is one of, if not the largest photovoltaic manufacturer in the world. We followed that up with announcements of UpSolar, Yingli Solar. We announced Wataya. Dennis, Wataya. He's Spanish, so he can say this easily. I'm just dyslexic American, so it's harder. What is it again? See, he shouldn't even be saying this because it's a competitor. Photowatio came in, and a number of other companies have located their headquarters here in San Francisco. SunTech was an interesting example. I remember we were sitting in the international room, and one of the reporters said, "What's the big deal? Just 10 employees." We said, well, this is a big deal because it's a China-based company that wants to locate not anywhere else in the United States, its headquarters, but here in San Francisco, and they're committed to growth. Today, we are announcing the newest headquartered company that's come to San Francisco. In fact, technically, they've been here for about 60 days. We wanted to make sure their offices were equipped and were satisfied with their space before we announced it. But GA Solar from Madrid, Spain, is now located its headquarters here in San Francisco, starting not dissimilarly to what SunTech started with just 7 employees, but with expectation of real growth in the upcoming days, weeks, months, and years ahead. Why is this a big deal, and why are we having a press conference? It's a big deal because this is one of the world's largest companies that have decided to move their headquarters, their U.S. headquarters here into San Francisco. You'll hear from Pablo in a moment, but he will, as he did a moment ago, let you know that they're operating in 22 countries around the world. They have 20,000 employees as part of the parent organization. To get their support to come to San Francisco, or their commitment, is an important signal to our ongoing efforts to lead this nation in terms of our green tech presence. Already, more than 200 green tech companies have located into San Francisco in the last number of years. Our green tech tax incentives have, I think, made an impact, not dissimilar to the biotech tax credit, and not dissimilar to what, if we have the wisdom here at the board, of Supervisors to support broader tax credits. I think the larger tax credits would do, but these targeted tax credits, we believe, are sending the right signal, at least, that we care and that these companies matter, and that if they're going to do business in the U.S., they should do business here. I want to thank all of my team at the Mayor's Office of Economic and Workforce Development for their hard work and their support. Dennis Conahan and his team that have worked hard to encourage GA Solar here to San Francisco. And I will now ask that their North American, what's your official title?
Country manager.
Yeah, country manager. So the U.S., well, the CEO of the U.S. de facto, country manager. I know the big bosses in Madrid may get upset with that, but the guy who runs the whole thing. And Pablo, you have two last names, remarkably. I only have one, so I'm a bit jealous. Otin,
Yes.
and then the other last name?
Pintado.
Pintalo.
Pintado.
Pintalo. See, I should have taken Spanish and not Italian. Pablo, if you could say a few words and welcome and thank you for being here.
Well, Mayor, thank you very much for the opportunity, and ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being here. As a head of GA Solar, I'm pleased and honored to be here and to present the company to this great community of San Francisco. GA Solar is part of a large corporation, as the Mayor mentioned. We are in 22 countries, and we employ 20,000 people. And we contribute for the development of all the different business units of the company in the U.S. and in other jurisdictions. We choose San Francisco along any other city in the U.S. because of its real commitment, international reputations towards clean technology, and no less because of its commitment for solar initiatives, as the ones that the Mayor mentioned. GA Solar sincerely thinks and believes that San Francisco is in the front round for any solar and renewable initiative in the U.S. and very much all around the globe. We recently announced in New Mexico one of the largest solar projects in the world, and we are as well working alongside California to develop large-scale utility projects to bring a future for the next generations, more solar power for next generations. We're very excited about the development of the renewable initiatives, particularly about the clean tech initiative developed by the Mayor. And together with other companies like ours, we think we're going to bring many more projects to the U.S., which inevitably is going to bring jobs and more clean energy for the future. Well, not much from our side. Thank you very much, and thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Pablo. And that commitment was with Governor Richardson, and arguably literally one of the world's largest installations, correct?
Correct. Yes, it's a 3-megawatt project in New Mexico. 300 megawatt. Yeah. 300 megawatt projects in New Mexico. It's a 2,550 acres, which today is the largest. There are other initiatives of similar scale. That's the only one in New Mexico. Right. And we, as a GA, think there is a great opportunity for the country.
And in California, you have now office presence, not headquartered in office space, but you now are developing in Fresno. Yeah. And where else?
So we have Fresno and small activities in Imperial Valley too. We have a large development in the Central Valley, anywhere from Solano to Kern County, and we have a number of projects in Imperial Valley too that are going to go hopefully forward in the next months. Probably before the end of the year, which means investments of hundreds of dollars, millions of dollars, right, and a significant amount of jobs too.
That's great.
So, could you say and spell his name for us, please?
It's Pablo. It's Pablo. P for Pita, A for Alpha, B for Bravo, L for Lima, O for Oscar. His surname is Otin. It's O for Oscar, T for Tango, I for India, N for November.
He's been asked that question before. Any questions about GA Solar? And we'll try to keep the topic focused, and I'll answer anything else on your mind.
Any other big plans for any other municipal installations in San Francisco in the next year or so, Mayor?
Yeah, well, of course, Sunset Reservoir is a big one, and with recurrent energy and the PPA, but we we're going to keep stepping up. As you know, we got the extension on our solar incentives for the current fiscal year, and we committed another $5 million, and we hope the Board of Supervisors approves that into the next fiscal year so we can continue the momentum. This solar program has been such a phenomenal success. We ran out of money earlier this year, but again, we committed to extending for low-income homeowners and renters the opportunity to extend them. We also, recall, have this green financing program that starts March 1st. $150 million will be appropriated so no one will be out of pocket to install solar or any other renewables in their homes. And so we believe that is going to attract other companies like GA to the city. I guess what we're trying to communicate here is not only the significance of an international company coming to San Francisco to open its headquarters, which in and of itself is important, but that our values, the environmental values that this city offers and proffers, has an economic benefit. This creates jobs. It creates business opportunities. And I think if San Francisco were a laggard as opposed to a leader, GA wouldn't be here. They would probably be in another city because it seemed more interesting or more achievable that they can grow in a city that embraced their business model. We have 17 green finance companies in San Francisco. We are a creative workforce. This is a great place to grow, and it's certainly an international destination. And I think you'll hear a lot more from us in the next few weeks and months. To your question, in terms of other companies that may be coming in and have committed, at least orally to us, that will put that to pen and paper very, very soon.
I don't want to get you off topic.
Then don't. Let's just, and we'll get there in a second. Let's just we'll let them go if we are off topic. Anybody else with GA?
How affordable this is going to be compared to PG&E?
Yeah, well, you're developing, in terms of just the affordability, the cost competitiveness of photovoltaics and solar, where do you see the industry going, and how competitive is the energy you guys are producing?
So it's a new technology, and therefore in the past has needed some help and some subsidies and some support. That clearly is going down and decreasing a lot, and we've seen grid parity, basically same price of electricity from PV, from any other technology, coming soon very, very quickly in the next years or so. And certainly we have the bless of produce electricity when everyone needs. So it's very difficult to compare with any other source of renewable. Solar is going to be the future, we believe, together with other technologies. And this price difference that you might see today certainly is going to disappear very soon, very soon.
All right, we'll let you guys go. Thank you very much. Welcome to San Francisco. We appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Dan. Nice to see you. Thank you. Thank you, guys. All right, other topics.
Will you or won't you?
Well, we're hopeful that when we meet with labor tomorrow that we get the 37.5-hour week. It's important to our budget plans, so that will be determined later. Thank you for the question. No, but it was interesting. I don't know who said what to whom, but created obviously some interest about some pending announcement. I'm here to say there is no pending announcement. It was news to me. I was actually supposed to be going up to Vancouver today to an environmental conference. So that was my big plans for Tuesday afternoon. I canceled them just to try to clean some of this up. But I've said this from, going back 2 weeks now, that there was an ember of consideration about the Lieutenant Governor's job, and that continues to this moment. I am considering it, but I haven't made up my mind, and there is no pending decision. We've got till March 12th at 5 o'clock. There's another deadline this week that I'm told as it relates to putting in a statement. One could put a statement in and not run. So if I indeed do that, don't read into it. But that would keep options open. But I have no immediate announcement to make, and I continue to reflect on the 3 things that are most important to me, and that's my wife, my daughter, and my commitment to this city. And those are the three reasons that I stepped out of the governor's race, as you recall, and they were sincere. And I'm quite congruent about that to this moment. And until I can relate and address those concerns and reflect my own reflect my own concern about my ability to prioritize my family in the city, then until I have that clarity, I won't be making any announcements.
So are you going to file a statement of intent or
I don't know.
interest or?
You know, this shows how much time and energy I put into this. I wasn't exaggerating to all of you when I said I hadn't put much in, that I just found that out, that there's a statement this week. That's, you know, you don't have to move forward with a statement. Look, if I announce, it will be
You
before.
have to file one if you're interested.
You don't
in
have to
running.
file. One should, I think, but you don't have to. So, you know, you could do that and then choose not to file by March 12th. But for me, the deadline is March 12th, and I don't expect to be making any significant or monumental announcements or important announcements well before that.
What does the Lieutenant Governor do?
Well, this is what I'm assessing and analyzing.
So
Yeah.
you'd be interested in this primarily as a stepping stone.
No, I love public policy. You know that. All of you know that. I'm termed out. My days are numbered here as mayor, and I love public policy. You know, that's why I got into politics in the first place. Remember, I come from private sector. I had the privilege to create over 1,000, 1,200 jobs. While that was fulfilling, it didn't give me everything that public life offers in terms of the policy. And I know I drive some of you crazy every week with a new idea. That's my passion. Looking at best practices, analyzing what works, what doesn't. And that's why this job is a dream job, being mayor of a city and a county. But those days are numbered. And to the extent that I can still offer something, and I believe I can, and I mean that. It may sound trite, it may sound like a cliche, it may sound patronizing, it may sound arrogant. But I do believe I have something to offer, and I believe I'm getting better at this. Meaning, I've learned a lot. Good days, bad days, good things I've done, some things that I regret. But I'd hate to just end it. I feel like I can still contribute, and so that's what appeals to me in this opportunity, this prospect. But I am analyzing your question: what does the Lieutenant Governor do substantively? You know me, I'll get very antsy very quickly if I can't contribute in a substantive way, and that needs to be considered very, very seriously, and that's what I'm doing right now.
Mayor, if you do decide to run for Lieutenant Governor, would not the Board of Directors then have the power to select the mayor?
Yeah, I'm learning all of this as well with you. I've never considered that, exactly how that process works. Hypothetically, if I ran, hypothetically, if I won, I would be sworn in next year. And that would fast track my status as mayor by 1 year. And that would give the Board of Supervisors the opportunity to determine who the next mayor is, which I imagine is very appealing from their perspective. I imagine my popularity over at the board has increased significantly in the last few, and they're all being very friendly to me. I've never experienced anything like this. It's quite enjoyable. So if I can continue this, maybe I don't.
Is your commitment to the city stands if the board appoints a lefty mayor?
Oh, you should join me in Fresno and consider what lefty. I may be the poster child for some outside the city, but in this town, it's a different place. Look, I've not made any decisions. When I do, I'll make sure all of you know. Don't believe any rumors until then. There is a deadline for a filing statement. I have to the extent this is serious due diligence, and it is serious due diligence now. It's not just that ember that I spoke of 2 weeks ago. I'd have to consider putting that in, but don't read into that necessarily if I do that. If I don't, it's suggestive that perhaps I'm not as committed to this as it may appear at the moment. But it's hard. I don't necessarily. It's a tough race. All races are tough. I put a year of my life into statewide politics, so it's not as if I can't dust off that experience. I can move pretty quickly here in terms of my appreciation and understanding of what's going on in the state. I do feel like we need to add some voices to the debate right now, and I certainly have a voice, and to the extent it resonates, that would be up to the voters, but again, that assumes I jump in.
What's the potential downside? You talked about the upside.
Well, the downside is time away from my wife and my baby. I spent 2 days walking in Golden Gate Park with Montana, and there's nothing more extraordinary than that with the baby Bjorn. I'm now speaking perhaps too honestly, but that's about as good as it gets in life. And being able to walk around and go through the Academy of Science and just be relaxed and be as engaged as I've ever been in the life of this city. I'm driving my staff crazy, getting in their files, spending time at my chief of staff's desk before he arrives. I mean, I love my job right now more than I've ever loved it. And I feel like we need a strong mayor right now in these difficult economic times. So those are the three considerations: my baby, my wife, and this job. And to the extent that I can honestly say that I can balance those things in this race, I may do it. But if I honestly can't say that, then I probably won't.
And then what would you do when you're termed out?
Well, that's a great question. I don't know. Politics is fickle. It's timing, isn't it? Most of politics. Things happen that you saw last week. We had someone running for Attorney General, and then you had someone running for Congress, and you had someone running for Assembly, and you had someone running for State Senate, and then you were talking appointments on the Board of Supervisors, all in a nanosecond that left and went away. So politics is curious, and I know that to the extent that I can get through this budget and avoid a recall, and I imagine I got 2 years left as mayor, and I've had a great run. Most mayors, at least the last 3 cycles, last 2 out of 3 were 1 term. So I know how blessed I've been, and that's a pretty extraordinary life, being able to be mayor of San Francisco at 40. I'm now 42 years old, and almost be termed out a second term. That's pretty special. So I have a lot to look forward to outside of politics. But as I said, I love public policy. I love public life. And I feel like I have something to add. If I didn't feel I had anything to add, I'd have no interest in this. Absolutely none. It's a bully pulpit. If you're a policy person, you could spend a lot of time focused on public policy. You can have a voice. I am concerned about this state and the dismantling of this state. I'm worried about what's happening in cities and counties. I've said this to you guys so many times, and with total sincerity and conviction. We could spend months and months here debating how we could save $100,000 here, $1 million there, but when you get the state of California coming in and cutting $65 million in muni budget, it makes all of that look rather trivial. And so it'd be nice to have a voice for cities and counties also in Sacramento, and I'm not sure we necessarily have that voice, a strong voice for city and counties, and I have that unique perspective as a city and county mayor. I think there are some things that we can do in that office that perhaps haven't necessarily been done. I, again, will not be passive if I were in that position. I will be quite active. But again, the point remains, I haven't made up my mind.
Step back. Is the UN going to be housed out there at this solar project?
Thank you for the question. We're hoping, I actually had just finished writing up a memo about trying to get the UN Global Compact out in Baby Owners Point and working to start raising the money on that. So we're hopeful that happens. And remember, what we want to do with the UN Global Compact is do what UCSF did for Mission Bay, an anchor for biotech and life science. If we can do that with the UN, we could do it as an anchor for green tech and the opportunity to make a lot more announcements like the one we made today.
Is Homeland Security, with the UN being in the war in Iraq and terrorists on the move, is there any contingency plans, and if that happens, for?
I think the UN is not, at least from my humble perspective, I'm not convinced it's the top target. Though San Francisco is one of the top targets, and we are diligent and we are always cognizant of that, and I remind people of that all the time, that San Francisco needs to be prepared for man-made and natural disasters, and we will continue to work hard, including promoting that siren you just heard in the background a moment ago.
Mayor, do you have any kind of sense of how you think the TWU members will vote today?
It's today.
On their contract, and what if if they pass it and what if they don't?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, the old political line, I don't answer hypotheticals, except I do all the time, so it's not really a legitimate line. I prefer not to in this case because we're hours away from a vote, and I don't want to do anything that could possibly taint the vote. But we're prepared for either outcome. It will be much more problematic if they do not support the tentative agreement that we framed with their executive board, and there are real consequences. And it's not. I don't say that in a threatening manner. I mean, this is serious. This budget it's challenging, and we may have gotten some good news, but most of that was capital dollars on BART and Oakland's bad news. About $17 million of good news, but again, that doesn't necessarily solve our operating budget deficit.
Would you go back and try to negotiate with them again, or is this it?
You know what? Our focus is right now on today and tomorrow is focusing on the 37.5-hour part-time work week. I mean, we do not have time to spend. I cannot spend 4 nights as I did 2 weeks ago with one labor union. It just physically could not happen. We've got to move quickly and deliberatively. The numbers are so staggering, so big, that if we wait even another 2 or 3 weeks, I think we're in we're in a red zone in terms of the challenge of balancing a budget without serious impacts in direct services in the city. And so it's well beyond TWU and this one. We did in good faith. We negotiated that. I expect they'll do the right thing tonight and step up and be part of the solution. If they do, they should be applauded and thanked. If they don't, we'll deal with that if it comes.
And how is the 37.5 work week
Well,
coming?
I've always believed, look, it's one of many options. The other options are self-evident. Massive layoffs into the thousands, or just cuts in wages, but you have to work as many hours. It seemed to me the best of the 3 alternatives was keep your job, keep your health care, get paid the same amount for the hours you're working, and when the economy comes around, very easily we can extend that work week back. Again, that's just the cards that have been dealt. I don't have any better ideas, and to the extent that others do, we're all ears, and we said that to labor when we met with them last week. Wednesday, tomorrow, we're meeting again. Every Wednesday we've committed to meet again. I think, well, I won't speak out of school about what time we're meeting because I don't know if anyone wants cameras camped out, but we're hopeful we can we could come to some agreement. And again, this is not a popularity contest. I mean, you can't avoid tough decisions right now.
You went to the police commission last week, and I told them, speaking of the tough decisions to come, you went there and told them face to face. I was wondering, is this the year that we're going to see, if not layoffs, but some sort of pretty massive change to the public safety units?
We'll see. I mean, they have to be part of the solution as well. And they've stepped up in the last 2 years. We're very appreciative, the POA and Local 798. And we're hopeful they do the same this year. They've got wage increases pending. So we are in negotiations with them on creative ways of working together. But everybody needs to participate. There are no sacred cows in the context of labor all working together to try to help their colleagues keep their jobs. Again, every single dollar of concession, every single dollar that comes back to the general fund is a dollar that can avoid a layoff. And so that's really what's at stake. Do we increase the number of unemployed in the city, even though the majority of our workforce lives out of the city? Or do we work together to try to mitigate that, still recognizing there'll probably be some layoffs regardless of any work week concessions?
What about the, go ahead. Is it still on this subject?
Well, I was going to ask about the changes to the federal tax proposal.
Yeah, well, I've always said on the payroll tax proposal that we were committed to working together with amendments. I've got, I've never believed for a moment that the proposal as is would get the support at the board. Quite the contrary, I'm not naive to that. We have some amendments. We've offered them quietly to a number of members of the Board of Supervisors for consideration. I'm working on some others. I think there's a lot of parallels between what the Obama administration's doing with Congress in terms of payroll tax incentives and what we would like to do in terms of payroll tax incentives. I think payroll tax incentives work. Some people believe differently. But I remind people, we can create jobs by hiring more people to work for the city. Those jobs cost about $100,000 each. Or we can create jobs in the private sector and spend 1/4 of that. And that's really the question we need to ask ourselves, is which approach do we want to take? And who do we work for? And I'm a labor person. I'm going to step up and I'll fight for working folks, and I think I've demonstrated that. Some believe too much so, walking picket lines and not crossing them, and et cetera. But we're at a point in time where we need to jumpstart our private sector economy. And we need to create jobs and real opportunities for small and medium-sized businesses to grow. And I think tax incentives targeted are good ideas. And this is, again, not a new proposal. I talked about this over a year ago when I initiated our local stimulus program. This is just one of 3 out of 14 initiatives that has yet to be acted on.
What about the Entertainment Commission? Is it time to...
Yeah, I said to my staff, at peril now of speaking out of school, maybe it's time to end, not mend, the commission, to play with words. I was a supporter of that commission at the time. It was advanced by then Supervisor Mark Leno. I think it was, a good idea. The practical application is perhaps it's not doing everything we had hoped, and I think you have to own up to that sometimes. Other folks disagree with me, and for good reason. You got to go back to the voters. It's a chartered commission, so you got to get 6 members of the board to agree with you before it can go back, unless you do a petition initiative. And what's the bandwidth with potentially 15 to 25 initiatives that may be on the November ballot to do anything? So then it goes back to, all right, let's mend it, not end it. And Supervisor David Chu and I had that conversation Friday in my office about ways we can strengthen the commission to avoid going back to the ballot. And perhaps that's the more pragmatic solution. I think ideally, we've got to start reducing the layers of bureaucracy here. I mean, we seem to have a commission for problems that don't exist, and we keep creating more commissions and task forces and work groups and CACs. Those are citizen advisory. You start adding these up. By the way, I finally gotten my staff to figure out how many of these we have. You guys, it's comical how many haven't met. I mean, there are CACs for CACs. I mean, you got advisory groups that have advisory groups and subgroups, and at a certain point, it's remarkable anyone could figure out how to navigate city bureaucracy, and that's why they hire people, remember. That's why expediters do so well, because no one else knows how to figure it out, and that's why you pay to have someone else figure it out for you. So, I don't want to attack the commissioners. I appointed a number of them, not all of them, and their director is someone I admire and think he's doing a good job. I just think they need to have stronger legislative support, or we can just move to withdraw the commission.
What are some of the solutions that you talked about?
Supervisor Chu and I had a candid conversation, as I said, on Friday, and we'll offer those the right time. So our staffs are working together on some ideas, and we're meeting with other members of the board, he is as well, to get their ideas of ways of strengthening the commission if indeed we don't go back to end it. Again, it's a charter commission, requires a charter amendment. I think it's a big mistake, this film commission proposal, terrible idea. We had an opportunity to maybe consider the film commission in relationship to the entertainment commission and potentially merging them and doing this right. We missed that. The board just went forward, because anytime you take away appointments of the mayor, of course the legislative branch is going to jump up and down and unanimously support that. It's unfortunate. But I think, film should be about theater, digital media. We could have changed that whole charter and the name, but I wasn't able to influence that over there. And the entertainment could have come as part of this. We had a chance to really do it right, but we missed that opportunity this year.
One more tech question. Latest effort to Wi-Fi the city. Are we going to finally make it happen?
Well, I also had that same conversation with the president of the board last week. Look, we should all be enjoying right now ubiquitous Wi-Fi in the city, except for 1 or 2 supervisors that wanted to make this a political agenda to kill it, and they succeeded. Because again, stopping things, there's no nobility in that. It's a pretty easy game. That was unfortunate. And it left a lot of folks down in Silicon Valley bewildered, completely stunned, that San Francisco would not want to be the first city in the United States with ubiquitous free Wi-Fi. Now, in some ways, that's a good thing, right? Because the next generation is this fiber network, which the city has been very committed to, but it's a huge price tag. Google, who was committed to doing free Wi-Fi in the city, is committed to providing opportunities to do fiber broadband for communities across the country. The challenge is they all read the paper a few years ago, and I bet they're all wondering, does San Francisco really want to do this? Are they going to play politics with this? And I don't think a company like Google is interested in the politics of some of this. So my question to the supervisors was last week, as I reached out to a few, if we do this, can we send a message to a company like Google that we actually are committed to this and that we're not going to play politics? And if we can do that, then let's put a proposal up. If we can't do that, I'm not going to go forward with a proposal and watch this thing get blown up because Supervisor A, B, and C don't like the fact that someone once emailed someone and got to know someone that actually founded Google, you know, all the politics, all the nonsense. The Supervisor Chu was interested in being helpful. Now, what that means at this point, I don't know, but I am very appreciative that he expressed support for seeing if we can work together to make a bid for Google's largesse. I think it would be a terrible mistake not to, and so I will work hard. But I need the board to support the framework as we go forward before we spend hundreds of hours. And I think I did an analysis, Steve, my chief of staff, they gave me an analysis of how many hours we'd spend on the RFI, this request for information. And that pulls people away from other things. So I got to know the board actually is interested in it. If they're not, then we're going to wish our neighbors good luck because they'll be the beneficiary of this. And we'll continue. Again, this will be, if I ever write a book, I'll write more about specifically what happened with the Wi-Fi. I have a transcript of one of the conversations Google had with one of the supervisors. And I kid you not, you should all have this to understand how oftentimes politics gets in the way of good public policy in San Francisco City Hall.
So, Mayor, to Lieutenant Governor for just a second. Can you just
I feel like I'm the governor in this press conference, not the lieutenant governor.
when will you decide?
Well, before, I mean, and I know this sounds
Are
real,
you gonna wait
I mean,
till the last
I don't, yeah, again,
When you decide, will you tell us?
yeah, I'll let you know. Well, you can help me decide. I joked with Willie Brown. I said, he keeps encouraging me. So I'm actually, I don't know if that's because he wants to be mayor. I think he may have 6 votes at the board. I was kind of doing the math. I had Steve Cava look at the charter. I said, can you come back as mayor after 2 terms? He goes, absolutely. It's concurrent terms. I said, let's start the Willie Brown for mayor, the rumor, that he's lined up the votes. Mateer will like that. He'll write about this one. But
Frustrations in politics that you experience, you're not done with politics, clearly. I mean,
I love it. You know I love it. In that Marine Dowd thing, you've heard me say tongue-in-cheek, I'll go back to the wine store. And of course, everyone knows me, goes, that's the last business I go back to. I go back to the other ones first. It's more just I say that because I can. It just, I have a lot, meaning my life doesn't end the day that I'm no longer mayor. And then I'm desperate for a job or I'm looking around trying to get an employment. I've got a wonderful life outside this with all the businesses, but I truly do love what I'm doing, and I feel like, I don't know why, and I may be living legitimately in a different universe, but I really feel like, I don't know, I'm enjoying it more, I feel more engaged, I feel like things are really starting to move in the right direction in spite of the obvious macroeconomic challenges in this budget deficit that's horrific. I feel good about my job. And again, a lot of people feel very differently and would love to get rid of me. But,
So when are you
we'll see.
announcing your run?
I was going to stick my tongue out, but then I saw the cameras. Thanks, guys.